Outlaw Sports is brought to you by Molson Canadian, made from Canada, and Rocky Mountain Barbecue, Alberta barbecue cuisine at its best. Hi everybody, Ian Busby of the Calgary Sun joins us today, and after this weekend's activity, anybody, with the exception of the Toronto Argos, can win the Grey Cup. It's up for grabs.
It's a beautiful thing. For the last few years in the CFL, it was Montreal Alouettes going all the way. You knew that team was going to come out of the East. Now we're not so sure. They can't beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers at home. That hasn't happened for a few years, where they've lost to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers at Montreal. So a lot of fun. The East Division is wide open. I like that. It's going to be a lot more fun down the stretch. Thinking of the playoff matchups, that could be very interesting.
Well, we'll get to that a little later in the week. Right now, I wanted to concentrate on the game that took place Saturday, McMahon Stadium. The Calgary Stampeders ran into a hot BC Lion team. And I have to say at this point, I really can't put a finger on what kind of identity the Calgary Stampeders have.
It's kind of puzzling, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
This used to be the team that never lost at home, would make this place a hard place to come into. They just don't seem to have the energy at home that they do on the road. That's a real puzzling thing. It's hard to put your finger on, well, why exactly are they not as good at home as they are on the road? 2-4 at home, that's brutal. And it's just a matter of they just don't seem to have a whole lot of, oomph. And where's that coming from? I don't know.
Execution. I mean, really, when you look at the talent that they have and the young talent that's coming up, I just can't understand why they aren't getting this thing done.
Yeah, if you find anybody with some answers, let us know, right? The funny thing is, the offense in this game seemed to move the ball a little bit. What happened in the first half was, I thought, interesting when Henry Burris got rolled up on with his ankle injury. He seemed to be fine, but that stalled that drive. Drew Tate couldn't finish it off with a touchdown. They had to settle for a field goal. That was a bit of a momentum swing. And after that, they just didn't seem to have the... Anytime they made a big play, they were bringing themselves back with some sort of a stupid play, stupid penalty that they were taking. Penalties is a real issue with this team. They're last in the league in that category, and that's they're going to have to address it.
Penalties and sacks. I know you don't like that sack.
Well, you know what?
You're
making me come around on that.
Yeah.
But not only did they not have sacks, they had one sack late in this game, but they didn't have pressure.
Yeah.
And Travis Lulay was waiting, and he's got a gun. So when he throws it downfield, you think of the protection that he had on the Akeem Foster touchdown.
Sure.
You shouldn't be able to run 48 yards and get that far down without somebody in his face.
Yeah.
And the fact that they made that play, that was a big turning point too.
Now, we've talked about this before, Jacques Chapdelain's offense, and I've never been a big fan of his offense, like the guy, but not the offense. But one thing that impressed me is the way Lulay was able to shift that, that offensive line would shift, and he'd make those semi-rolls out and pick guys apart, really. And you're right, it just did not, for some reason, the Stamps are just kind of letting this guy do whatever he wanted.
Yeah. And Chapdelaine had a good plan here. He did, you said, moved Lulay around a bit. They had a lot of motion in the backfield, bringing guys through. Just having a Sean Gore crossing route turning into a rushing play, that sort of keeps the defense on its toes with guys moving back and forth. And I thought it was a pretty good game plan. They actually rushed the ball for the first time, seemingly forever, for the BC Lions.
Yeah.
And with Andrew Harris, and then putting in Tim Brown for a few plays too. So that was a good effort on their part. Lulay is just a gunslinger,
yeah.
and he's going to chuck the ball up, and he's going to have incompletions. He's going to give the defense chances to make plays, but he's going to keep going, and he doesn't get down on himself, and he's not afraid to throw into traffic. And with the receiving core that they have now, Arlen Bruce obviously making a huge play, going in and out of players like crazy. They couldn't tackle him. And G. Roy Simon being what he is, that's going to be a key down this. They're a team to watch, and the West Division is now a lot of fun. Yeah.
Wally's got a real interesting team on his hands. I mean, at the start of the year, they had a young receiving core that couldn't focus, couldn't catch. The defense wasn't stopping much. They just looked like a disaster. But we said, hey, Wally started out last year, and at the end, by the time the end of last year rolled around, they were one of the most dangerous teams in the league.
Well, this is what happens when you have a lot of new faces and a lot of young guys. You take some time to build, and I think Wally changed up his training camp this year. He didn't go as hard on them as he did last year. He thought they were worn out by the time the season started last year. That's when they went out 1-7. This year, they just had a couple of bad breaks early on. I think they could have won that game against the Calgary Stampeders in week 2 had G. Roy Simon caught that 2-point conversion and tied it. Then the sequence of events would have changed that game. They had an early win for them come through. I think they would have been off to the races earlier. The fact that they're where they are now is not a surprise. I think the fact Wally knows how to coach. He knows how to keep guys going. And every time they try to write Wally Buono off, he comes back with a 3 or 4 game winning streak.
I love it. I mean, the Silver Fox. Really, he's one of my favorites of all time. He really is. He's a class act. Wally looks after Wally, but he knows how to win football games, and he's been doing it a hell of a long time. And it's obviously, he's obviously going to be a Hall of Fame coach one of these days. I mean, the record stands for itself. Him and Don Matthews at the top. They just put Don Matthews into the Hall of Fame this past weekend. So Wally will be there when he decides to hang it up, if and when.
Well, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
They've been calling for him to move up to the GM spot for the last few years in BC, but they don't really have an obvious successor there. I mean, Mike Benavidez might be the guy, but we've seen how long-term defensive coordinators go as the head coach. Sometimes it doesn't work out. And I don't think Jacques Chapdelaine is the guy to take over as head coach. When Wally goes up, it'll be a big changing of the guard. It'll be the first time in, 30 years that Wally Buono is not a head coach in the CFL.
Yeah, it'll be a sad day.
Can utility be a poster? Can utility keep you up at night, dreaming? Can utility put thoughts in your head? Depends on what you mean by utility. Introducing the new Porsche Cayenne and Cayenne S Hybrid. Lighter, more agile, more efficient. More Porsche than ever.